And good morning, my wonderful friends. I'm coughing already. I just, uh, I just swigged a drink and it doesn't seem to have been quite enough. Oh, okay. Sorry. I almost forgot. This is important. I can't forget this. I acknowledge the traditional owners of this land. I pay my respects to their elders past and present, and to Aboriginal elders and peoples from other communities who may be taking part in this live stream today. I know I've been very slack recently about doing things like shouting out to Aboriginal businesses and things. I will try to find a few more. So, or is that the new office? Yes, it is, Austin. It is. I'm going to take a little walk around in a minute. I have my phone here, so instead of carrying my laptop, I'm going to try using my phone and use that as a portable camera. So good morning, everybody. Good morning to Gerald, Cable Tie, Peter, Intermittent Tech, Sion, Austin, Chip, Sausage. Oh, Peter, let the bidding commence. Bidding for what? What are you bidding for? Yeah, Chip, coffee first. That is very important. Who did I miss? I probably missed saying hello. Oh, yes, I've got to say hello to Johnny Bergdahl, who I think is in Australia right now. Probably way up north, a few thousand kilometres north of me. Delane, some call it fun. Yes. Oh, and James is here. The fleets. So much. All right, so first up, I've got to say a big thank you to Cable Tie, who came over yesterday and put in some hours of labour. Tassie Bob, what are you bidding for? I mean, I appreciate the the money. So Peter is bidding $2 for something. Tassie Bob has bid $5 something. Oh, Nickel is bidding -5. Okay, so that takes it back down to $2 again. I don't know what this auction is. I don't know what's going on. As usual. Now, where was I? Okay. Yesterday, Peter, aka Cable Tie, came along and helped with doing a whole lot of stuff here. And first up, what did we do? First up, we assembled the party tent, which you will see in just a moment. Auctioning off my embarrassment. And then we built a couple of portable bases with caster wheels under them, so the pick and place machines can sit on those and then they can be moved around into different places. And it has worked up. This first stuff is important. I know, thanks, Chip. I don't know if you can see it, but my breath is frosting as I'm talking. It's probably not really showing up on the camera, but every now and then I can see it myself. So where I am is sitting. I've got my laptop turned sort of sideways. G'day Ray. Hey Wet Socks. I've got my laptop turned sort of sideways. If it was in my normal straight on position, it would be here. I've got it slightly sideways, largely so that there is somewhere to put Steve because he's sitting on the shelf here. And in a moment you will get... Tradie Trev asked, when are we making cool stuff? That was a $5 question. And the answer is really soon, because as you're about to see, this space is almost ready for me to begin doing stuff in it. Sion says, you're not going to actually run the P&Ps on those moving bases, right? Well, I was planning to. It's got locking casters on it. I think it'll probably be okay. I've got no idea. I'm just going to have to start it and see how much they throw themselves around. It might be a terrible idea, but in the meantime, at least it lets me move them around and rearrange them, and I can lift them on and off with the forklift into the right place. So much vibration needs to be on concrete. Okay, interesting. Well, then what I can do is I can put little jacking feet under the bases so that I can, and then put the feet down and lock it in position. Chip says it's 8 degrees inside the house here. Oh, cold. All right. Tradie Trev. Yes, we're making cool stuff soon. So anyway, I'm turned sort of sideways because if I had my... I can't do it because my phone's hanging off it. If I had my computer in the correct place, it'd just be a blank wall behind me. Now, yes, Chip, Wet Socks has got a couple of degrees to send you. Let's see if this works. I've got my phone here, and I've got Droid Cam running. So let's see if I switch to that. Is it working? No. Audio would still be working, but it looks like... Hang on, I think I can fix this. Microphone. I'm going to deactivate it and then activate it again and see if it will connect to the phone. No. Okay. Let's try... What shall I try? I'm sure you can hear me, it's just you've got a black screen. Oh, there we go. It just took a while to wake up. That's better. Okay, so if I now slide directly backwards... that is the laptop that I was sitting at. And I think they're still using the microphone in the laptop, so I probably sound fairly distant at the moment. And looking through... Yeah, it's quite stuttery because the phone is sharing its... camera over Wi-Fi. You can see the monitors up there. And over there, some of the boxes that I've brought along, which are sitting in the little kitchen nook. So the frame rate on this is terrible, but at least it means I can move this around. Oh, now it looks like it stopped entirely. Oh, it's come back. Yeah, this is really unreliable. I don't know if this is going to be any better than just carrying the laptop around. I think I might resort to that. But, okay, I'm going to switch back to webcam. I'm going to give up on Droid Cam, I think. Because I've only got Wi-Fi. I've got 2 Ethernet drops cabled in over there. But I don't have it available yet around the place. I haven't got that far. So let's change this to... Here we go. Pick that up. I'm going to pick up the laptop. It'll probably work a bit better. And take you back over here. So this is in the corner of the room with my back to the front window, kind of near the front door. And that's the view coming into the room. The desk set up. The shelves are up at that end. The desk now wraps around, and that is properly in place. These are that straight bit of bench top and that straight bit of bench top. The 2 of those were made for me by the Kitchen Factory 2 doors down for $80 total. They had some spare stock lying around, so they cut them to size for me on their CNC table saws, and they came out absolutely perfect. Like, I measured them. I told them the dimensions I wanted. I've measured them, and they're more accurate than... So they did a good job. So I'm going to walk back over this way. There you can see that's one of the desks. When I went to get the... and a straight desk. And because the pieces were all jumbled up, we didn't even know until we started trying to assemble them and figuring out what the pieces were. And that is the straight desk that came with it. And that particular top, I thought was one of the returns for one of the corner desks when we were loading all the parts. And I don't think they even knew what they had. So I stuck that in place. So that is where I intend to... I do want to have a desk there. Maybe not that one. That's the front door just there. I do intend to have a desk here because what I want to do is have this as an interview spot. Have a chair on each side so that when I have guests come over and appear on the live, what we can do is have one person sitting on each side. So we're facing each other and have cameras in both directions and a third person perspective camera as well. That'll make it much easier than trying to have two people sitting side by side, jammed in front of a camera. And yes, video is choppy. Oh, okay. It's probably my, yeah, the bad Wi-Fi. I don't even know what Rogers is. All right, so the floor in here looks really good. That's come up nicely. So that's just 2 coats of that Berger Jet Dry paving paint. Oh, Sion, I saw your video about your new space and the big conundrum about painting the floor. I'll get back to that in a moment. I have some thoughts on that. So the 3 machines are sitting here and they're on these bases which are really quite heavy and solid, and I've used fairly chunky locking casters under them, but we'll see what happens. It'll probably throw itself around, and I'm sure Sion is right. He has more experience with this stuff than I do. So now we're inside the Play School party tent. And from in here, that is looking back towards the office area. And yesterday, as I said earlier, Cable Tie came over and we put up this tent. And we recorded time lapses. So both of us set up our phones to record a time lapse. Mine was pretty bad because the field of view ended up being blocked for most of it. Cable Tie's time lapse turned out really well. He had his sitting down about here somewhere as it was being assembled. So the view showed it all starting from nothing to being complete. So I will stick that time lapse up sometime. Coming back out into the dirty mechanical area, I've got the gas heater running there, keeping it away from the tent because I don't want to turn that into a raging inferno. And that is the view of the tent from the outside. Hang on, I'm going to come a little bit further along, turn around slowly. Yep, so there's another one of the corner desks sitting there. There's some of the rack stuff. There's one of the trolleys that we were using to move the pick and place machine around. And there is the tent, keeping that area slightly more dust-free than the rest of the space. Okay, I'm going to head back in, sit down. I haven't been able to see the chat as I've been walking around doing this. But just before I do, just wanted to show you again. So sitting at my desk, so this is the, that is the spot at the desk where I'll be sitting. So when I'm sitting at the desk, the view through the windows is that, basically. Looking through into the machine room and with the status screens and things visible up there, which is really, really cool. I like it. I like the way this is coming out. Okay. Now, got to get Steve back in frame. Now, don't forget to like... Thanks, Peter. Yes. Sorry, I'm stalled again. Yeah, the Wi-Fi on stream does not like you walking around. Yeah. Doug said, you say Play School. I thought it looks like a wedding marquee, the marriage of P&P machines. It does. I think that's kind of what they are for. I am amazed that they can sell something like this. It's a surprisingly big structure for, I think it was $112 Australian. So that's like $80 US, maybe a bit less, with free shipping. And I got it in about 3 days. It's very lightly made. yesterday when we were putting it up, we were saying that we would not want to be assembling this outside in windy conditions. There's just no way you could do it. It'd be horrible. And doing it inside on a nice, perfectly smooth concrete floor with no wind and that sort of thing, it was fine. But in any worse conditions, I would not want to be, I would not want to be putting this tent up. It'll probably not be very structural. It'll just fold and collapse. Yeah. Okay. Dodgy says that you foresee issues even with locking wheels. Yeah, there'll be issues. I've got to learn these things. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Cable Tie says even a slight breeze would blow it into the neighbour's place or up a tree. Yeah. All right, so floors. Oh, Sion, you've lost the stream again. What is going on with this? Yeah, I really need to get my other computer over here. I was thinking of having it over here for today with the ATEM, so I could do the stream from that with a proper camera and do the way it should be done. But I started figuring out all the things I would need, like I'd need to run Ethernet cabling through to get the ATEM online, and I didn't end up doing it. All right, now, so Sion, now that you're back, so for those who don't know, Sion has just taken out the lease on a factory and is about to be moving his production and R&D and all of that sort of stuff into it. So we're running on parallel paths, and on the factory tour video, he was talking about the floor and whether to paint it, and the conundrum of painting the whole floor and how long it would take to dry and the cost of the paint and all of that sort of thing. So my feeling on that is, if the state of the floor is likely to annoy you in any way, I would do it. It's the only chance you'll ever have to do it. And if you use something like Jet dry paving paint, it dries really, really surprisingly fast. Like, it'll be touch dry. Depending on temperature, obviously, within hours, and you could probably walk on it the next day. I wouldn't be putting heavy stuff on it the next day, but you're not totally locked out of it. And the other thing is that you'd had advice to do the whole floor in one go, because otherwise you will see the seam between them. Now, looking at the video in your factory, I could see that there were seams in the cement. There was a cross, and there was a cross piece, and there's a seam, I think, running right down the middle. Yeah, a Cable Tie says two-part epoxy is super quick too and so tough. That's true, but it does cost more. And and Chip said, it can't help wondering about the casters on the paint. Yeah, that was one of the reasons that I got polypropylene casters. I think it's polypropylene, because casters come in many different styles and with different types of plastic. Some of them are really hard plastic. For the really heavy loaded ones that you put under big machines, the wheels can often be metal, and obviously they're going to scratch the crap out of the floor. You can also get them, for some of the lighter weight ones, you can get them with fairly soft. You can get them with like a rubber, which is really soft, which has both advantages and disadvantages. There are things like, if the caster is sitting for a long time, it can develop a flat spot. And the ones I got are kind of they've got a little bit of give in them, so they're not totally squishy like rubber. They're kind of an in-between, and I've run them around on this floor yesterday with the machines on them, and they haven't left any marks on the floor at all. So I think that's going to be okay. Yeah, and the other thing, Sion, is you talked about 2 coats. If you're going to keep the floor grey, you only need 1 coat. It is really surprising if the floor already has some kind of covering on it and it's sealed. You could put down 1 coat on, say, the back half of the factory and leave it for a day, and then you could walk on it, and then put 1 coat down on the front half of the factory. And that would allow you to bring in a heater as well, because then you could put the heater. In fact, what you could do is you could even put the heater upstairs. But the yeah, and epoxy is expensive compared to painting. Oh, Dodgy says, was helping a mate move last week and his wheels on his lathe exploded when we tried to put it on the truck. Oh, yeah. Oh, and Sausage, I think I mentioned this earlier. Sausage said, paint makes it so much easier to sweep and keep cleaner. I have definitely found that in this area. Because I've been painting this in patches, because I've had to move things around in order to do any painting. What I've done is painted part of it, moved things, painted another part of it. And all through that, I've been sweeping. So I've been trying to keep the levels of dust and things down. And, well, sweeping it spreads dust, but still, I've been trying to keep all the mess out of the way. And I found that as I sweep across the bare cement, it doesn't really pick things up very well. And then as soon as you get onto the painted part of the floor, all of a sudden the broom just slides like, I don't know, it's like it's on ice, and everything sweeps up beautifully. So keeping a well-painted floor clean is much easier than keeping a crappy floor clean. Oh, this is strange. I was really excited about doing a live stream this morning from the space here because there's been so much progress, but I think I'm just kind of a bit burned out. It's like my motivation has gone. I'm sitting here with my brain at a kind of not able to get off idle. Thanks, Sausage. Yeah, it is looking great. Yeah. And so, yeah. Well, Sion, if it's only aesthetic and you don't really care about it, then yeah, it's then it is extra expense and time. Sparky has pushed you back. Oh no. Yeah, it's really hard getting stuff done at the moment. There are such long lead times on everything because we're having our bathroom renovation done after all that water damage. That started the proper renovation started December or January, and it still hasn't even been tiled. Mad Decky, good morning. Somebody get John a coffee. Yeah, that would be good. I had one earlier, but it doesn't seem to have been enough. And Dodgy, I was thinking you should cut the live streams in half so you can do some work. Yeah. Chip says, I feel I'm going to regret not making the effort to get to you and help at this stage, but it's also at this stage that I'm more likely to be less useful. Well, it'd always be useful to have you around. Sudoad, get John a coffee. Thanks, Peter. Yeah, maybe that is it. Stephen, crank up the heater so you can get out of hibernation mode. That's probably partly it. It's because I'm partly sitting here freezing and also tired after yesterday, and that I'm having trouble kickstarting my brain, which means I have trouble kickstarting my mouth. Yeah, another coffee necessary already. Well, what shall we talk about? I think part of another part of it is because we got so much done yesterday, it feels like a plateau, like having hit thanks Allsop 69 80 Fahrenheit in Indiana. It feels like there isn't much to talk about, which is really kind of backwards because a whole lot has been done, but it's talking about it is kind of retrospective. I don't know what I'm saying. It's also partly the dauntingness of how much there still is to go. Thermal underwear fund. Thanks, Peter. So, Keith, okay. This is a good way to get things going. Specific questions, because that'll set me off talking about something. Keith asked, what is the next step to getting those pick and places working? All right. I need to make some connections to them. They've been kind of stripped down for transport. So the computers have been taken out of them. They don't have monitors attached. The traffic lights have been taken off. So I need to do that basic stuff first. At home, I've got boxes and boxes full of all of the extra bits that go on the pick and place machines. I need to bring those boxes here and start reassembling those basics, which is going to be a little bit of guesswork because I didn't disassemble them. Glenn took all those things off before I picked up the machines just to make them easier to transport. And there's no manual or anything like that for where everything should go. So I'll have to do a bit of puzzling to figure that out. And then I need to hook up the necessary services. So there is vacuum, and power is easy. Just plug in a power cord. But I need to plug in, I need to get air into it. Okay, so I have made a little bit on that. Trady's head. When are we putting parts into the pick and place? Seems like a mind cluster. A mind cluster? Okay, let's go for a little walk. Cable tie, can we see the time? Can we see the time lapse? That's a good point. Yes, maybe. I've got to figure out how to do that. That's the trick, is loading the time lapse on my thing and sharing it through the stream, because it's not so easy to do direct desktop sharing. Now, let's have a look at some stuff. That hose, yes, I want that hose. I'm going to come over here a little bit. Air hose. Oh, it looks like the stream has freaked out again. That sucks. Come on, come back. Come back. That's back, maybe. I can't really tell. Alright, so the audio hopefully is still working. And so what I've got here is some air hose for the compressor. I've got 10mm and 12mm. This is a filter to make sure the air is nice and dry. And then it's got fittings on the input and the output side. These are all for 12mm hose, and the machine on its inlet. So what we've got here is some various adapters and things. There's a barb here which will go onto the compressor. So from there it goes into the pressure regulator, or is it the filter? No, it goes into the filter first, then into the pressure regulator. This hose will go from which way around? I can't even remember. And that is some 10mm hose. And here we have something to cut. Anyway, those are the parts that I need. That stuff will go in between the compressor and the pick and place machine. And then if we come in here, go for a little walk into the room here, you can see just there, that is where the compressed air goes into the machine. And over here is where power goes in. Am I pointing the camera in the right place? I can't even tell. Down there. So there's a power socket and circuit breaker and ELCB and that sort of stuff. So what I need to do is hook all that stuff up and hook it up to a compressor, of which there are many options. I have my own compressor here, which is a smallish one. And Lachlan has a huge compressor out the back, which I can also tap into if I want to, and put a local receiver in here. So a local receiver is basically just a big air canister. It's a way of taking oh, thanks, Stephen. So it's a way of providing, all right, from an electronics point of view, it's like putting a big bulk capacitor on the output of a voltage regulator. So or putting a capacitor near a part that is going to be using a lot of power intermittently, like putting decoupling caps near the power rails of a microcontroller. What you can do is at the end of a compressed air line, put a big tank out there, and it means that if you're drawing air from the tank, it gives you local, extra local capacity, and you can get high flow rate without working through the resistance of the long air hose that gets there. So Sion said, did you do water or oil-based Berger paint? It was oil-based. I used Berger Jet Dry. There's probably, there's still a tin of it out there, so I can show you the exact one if you like. It's moderately expensive. I think it was it was like in the order of $227 for a drum. Yeah. And it does smell pretty bad when you put it on, but I was surprised that it sets up really, really quickly and the smell disappears. Like within a day, there's nothing at all. You can't even tell. Now, I had the advantage of having the big gas heaters. So when I was doing painting, I had those heaters on, which brought the air temperature up a little bit and probably encouraged air circulation a little bit as well, just because of convection currents from the heating. But so that was working in my favor, but it did work pretty well. Oh, Johnny pointed out, it needs to match what was already there, otherwise it will flake off. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know what is there, Sion. My guess is they probably just went cheap. And, want to go white or charcoal? Yeah, so found the Jet Dry. I can't decide if I want to go white or charcoal. White looks nice, but I'm concerned it would get dirtier quicker. Yes, that is a tough one. And I found that I do leave footprints on it. I'm not entirely sure it's a smart idea to do it in the mechanical area, and I'm kind of thinking that it might be better to go for a grey floor in the mechanical area and white just in the cleanish room. But because walls are going in different places and all of that sort of thing, at this stage the easiest thing is just put white down everywhere. At the moment I've got one coat of white from the roller door back, and the only place where there are two coats is in the area for the cleanish room, plus another little patch. And what I could do is just put a coat of the grey over the top. And once you've got one coat on, the second coat goes on really smoothly and it flows really well. Yeah, it's a grey blue yuck colour right now. Well, the thing is that paving paint, unless you get it custom tinted, really only comes in a few colours. You don't have a lot of options. It's not like house paint where you can look up a colour chart and say, I want that particular thing. It can be tinted, I think, but it's not a normal thing to do. So most factories have like the standard grey and they're all the same. Yeah, white or black will show dirt. Yeah. Yeah, so getting back to that question. That's a good question to try to keep me on track. The one about what is next for the pick and place machines. So yeah, the next thing is put those pieces back on, get the computer running. I'm just going to do the unmodified machine at this stage. The lane said, can put an extra air tank to reduce volume issues. Yes, exactly. That's what I meant with the receiver. So I might be getting the terminology wrong, but as far as I understand it, when you have a big local air tank near to the load, it's called a receiver. Johnny, yeah, you could do pink. Just start with some white. Get the white paving paint, chuck some red pigment in it, and you got pink. Making pink is really easy. It's just white and red. Oh, I can't do pink. And then what happens? Then I'm not even really sure. I just need to get those services connected. I need to get the vacuum connected and power connected. Start one of the machines up and then go through the standard commissioning process. There is a manual from KO for commissioning the machines. So once I've got the bits reattached that Glenn took off, I will go through that commissioning process and we'll see what happens. So Trady Trev asked an interesting question. Short answer is no. Trady said, are you willing to send our designs to your PNP? Now, this question fundamentally is, do I want to be a CM or a contract manufacturer? And the answer is no. Now, there will obviously be exceptions. There will be certain projects that I will, like where I'll help people out or whatever, and run things through the machines, particularly projects that I've been involved with. And for things like the Open Hardware Mini-Conf, this would be fantastic, having this sort of facility so that we can prepare boards really easily. Well, I shouldn't say really easily, because it's not easy, it's still work. But I don't intend to be a contract manufacturer where someone can come and knock on my door and say, hey, I've got some board files and some parts, can you run these through your machine? And then hand them back at the end, because I'm really not optimized for that. It's not what I'm interested in doing. It's not my business model. My business model is contracting and doing custom product development and working on projects, like working on open source projects where I release all the designs, and assembling those projects to make them accessible to people who couldn't otherwise build them for themselves. But it's not being a production line where people come in and say, I want 5,000 of this widget, and then I work out a price and figure out a margin and run it through. It's just not, it's not really the sort of thing. It wouldn't be a smart use of my time. So, and as Sion says, good decision. Yes, I know Sion has had this same sort of thing come up. And no worries, Trady. It's a good question. I've had a number of people who have asked me that thing. So don't feel bad about asking it or anything like that. And it seems like a really obvious thing. Like, okay, now that if I get these machines up and running and I have a process in place where I can take boards and parts and solder paste at one end, and I can end up with fully assembled boards at the other end, then in some respects it makes sense to keep the machine busy, like to keep the line busy. But and in some respects that's kind of how, like, if you're a production facility, that's how the facilities pay for themselves. It's all about the utilization of the line and making sure that they are running as many hours in the day as possible. But that's not really the motivation for what I'm doing and how I'm setting this up. This is more, you can kind of think of it more as like a hobbyist approach where I want, okay, another way of putting this. Imagine being a hobbyist and you like messing around with electronics and you want to be able to build stuff, and you have the opportunity to build your dream workshop with everything that you want. That's essentially the situation that I'm in right now. In fact, I've already been through that process once. I went through that process when I set up the workshop at home. And so when we did the renovations on the house and added that space out the back, I could think right from before construction started, it was intended that that was going to be my workshop. And at the time, I was still full-time at IVT. So it wasn't my business or my job. It wasn't to make money. It was like the dream hobbyist setup. And then over time, it kind of became my job. But it was really a case of, we've got a clean slate, we're going to build a room and we can wire it from scratch exactly how you want it, which is how I ended up with 72 PowerPoints and how many were, I don't know how many Ethernet drops and things around the place. It's a lot. So that room was like the first iteration of build your dream home lab. And I'm really pleased with how that came out. It worked out really well over time. And yeah, it's been a fantastic place to work. But I hit the limitations of that. Now that that has sort of transitioned from, and that transition has been gradual. It hasn't been a case of finish one job, start a new job, and now this is how you make money. It's been a transition from full-time software development with IVT to now full-time hardware and firmware development. And so now that I've bumped into the boundaries of that, I've really hit the limits of what I can do within that space. It's a case of, okay, what's the next iteration of the dream hobby setup? And yeah, I see on said, no, not like a hobby. Everything you're doing is to facilitate you being able to efficiently build any project you're working on with as little friction and external influence as possible. That is brilliantly put. That is really, really well put. It's not about building a production line that is a treadmill that I have to keep churning over in order to keep revenue coming in. It's about being able to sit here at my computer with ideas and prototypes and think, I need to assemble 100 of these. I've got pick and place machines right there. Here we go. Run it through the line. And it's the same sort of thing as, I suppose it's a big scale difference between having a 3D printer at home and using an external 3D printing service, or having a laser cutter at home or using an external laser cutter service. So I've got a video that I started work on a while ago that I need to finish, and I actually paused it because of the transition to this space. The video is my principles for electronics lab design, and how to set it up to be effective. And I started doing that in my old space, and my old space is now half pulled apart. So I'm going to redo that video in this space using this as an example of some of the principles. And so I've got a whole series of principles to follow, and they're all like, what's the term, like a koan or like a little saying. And one of them is localized loops. This is probably a really good context to explain it in, actually. Okay, so what is localizing loops? Localizing loops is when, all right, it is being able to iterate quickly. That is the essence of it. So if you have an idea for, say, a bracket that you want to fabricate, and it needs to be laser cut, if you don't have your own laser cutter, what you do is you design the bracket, you go to an external service, and they cut it for you, which might take them a few days to get through their queue, and then they let you know and you go and pick it up, and like a week later you have your laser cut bracket in your hand, or you pay an online service to get it. So your iteration time is close to a week. And then you discover that it doesn't quite fit properly, or you think, I've got an idea for how to make it slightly better. I want to change my design. So you change your design, you send it off to the external service. A week later, you get your updated version. Versus having a laser cutter in the corner or in the next room, and you design it, you press go, and 5 minutes later, you're holding your laser cut piece. And at that point, the decision that you make about whether to iterate on that design is largely governed by the cycle time of the iteration. So if you then go, oh, I should have done something slightly differently, you can walk back to your computer, changes, 5 minutes later, you've now got version 2. So instead of taking 2 weeks to iterate through a couple of cycles, you've taken like 20 minutes. And so anything that requires looping through or iteration in order to improve it, if you can take that and localize it instead of relying on an external service, you can dramatically improve your efficiency. And that applies to things like 3D printing, laser cutting, board assembly. So where this really comes to is something like prototype board assembly. Now, if you go to a prototyping service in, I don't know, say China, that's where most of them are. If I was doing contract work for a client and I worked on a new design for a project and I came up with the circuit board design and all of that sort of thing, I can either send that off to a prototype assembler, and then 4 or 5 or 6 weeks later, we will get boards back, or I can have pick and place machines right here, and a day later, I can have some stuff done. So it's an example of that iteration and reducing the friction of those iterations. Yeah. So obviously you can't do everything in-house. You have to be selective about it. If you try to take on every single thing, you can't be an expert in everything. These things take skill. Like running pick and place machines takes knowledge and understanding of the machines. You need to be able to effectively do it and do it accurately. The way you do it is not, like, it doesn't have to be 100% as good as someone that does it as their full-time job. If you can do like an 80% job, most of the time that's sufficient for these purposes. But so you have to be kind of selective. And there are certain things like large-scale CNC machining. That is a whole expense and skill set. It would be really, really useful for me to have something like a machining center sitting in the workshop area here, and be able to fabricate big parts very accurately. But that is a huge skill set, and the machines are expensive. You have to put a lot of time into learning about how it works. It's like pick and place machines. You have to choose where to put that effort and where to become proficient yourself versus here in Bayswater, within a kilometre, I could find probably 6 CNC machining places. If I needed something cut, I could go and get it done. And it's also a matter of scale. So I do have my own little CNC machine. I've got a 6040 CNC, and I've used that a number of times for some cool things. Like I've used it to make face plates for rack mount stuff. I've used it for making, for cutting holes in project boxes, like shapes for connectors and that sort of thing. So having a little CNC machine solves a lot of those basic problems, but I definitely would not go to the investment of putting in like a $100,000 machining center, because that is a skill set and a job in itself. So I'm being selective. The areas where I can most benefit from things like having my own in-house pick and place machines is really where I've got to put my time. Okay. What's been going on in the chat? Richard said, yes, Eon, keep as much as possible in-house and everything else as close as possible, balancing economics and efficiency. Yeah, you got to make that decision. You have to decide, if I can get it done down the street in a reasonable time at a reasonable price at a reasonable quality, then is that localized enough? You don't have to localize every loop to the point where it's in the room with you. Some of those loops might be a bit bigger, but the thing to consider is which loops do you iterate on the most? So the most number of cycles. In many ways, it's a lot like optimizing software. So when you're doing code optimization, once you've done profiling of the code and figured out where processor time is being spent or where there are delays, a lot of the time what you find is that time is spent in loops. Anything that is executed multiple times has a multiplier effect. If you can make code inside a loop run 50% faster, and that loop is run 100 times, you've just had a big win. If you optimize code that's not in a loop, make it 50% faster, and it's only ever run once, then it's less of a win. So looking for where those loops occur and making iteration smooth and painless is where you get really big wins. Okay. What is everybody talking about? I don't know. Have you seen Factory 400? DefPom asked. That sounds familiar. Where is... Okay, I've got to do a quick Google for Factory 400 because I'm sure that I have... Factory 400. I'm sure I've heard that name and I can't remember where. World's largest 400 square foot factory. Oh, is that the thing where they put everything in a shipping container or something? I don't know. Maybe not. The world's smallest factory is... Okay. Sorry, I'm just clicking around on the Factory 400 website at the moment. I don't know. I'm going to leave that open because it's about building real things in a tiny factory. Yeah, cool. I'm going to leave that open because I'm going to check that out later. Yes, I'm sure I have seen that, but I can't remember when or where from. Yeah, it looks like a cheap manufacturing plant. Going to look at their YouTube video after this. Yeah, dodgy. I may be misrepresenting it, but my vague memory of looking at Factory 400 sometime in the past is that it is around building a very small manufacturing facility that is quite flexible. So the idea is that instead of having a really large facility, you can do it all firstly in a small space at a lower cost and in a flexible way, so you can do different types of projects. But I may be misrepresenting that. I'm not sure. Okay, so I just saw more. I saw my breath again. Part of the problem here is that I don't yet have a door. I'm just going to turn this around. So there is the door through to the mechanical area, and it's just a big hole in the wall. And because the factory outside there is quite big and open, all the heat just disappears. And in order to keep this front room in at a better temperature, I really need to get a door onto there. It's actually something that I've been waiting on having. Well, there's been other stuff to do first, but my daddy's going to help me with that. Getting a license of some kind. So Dodgy said, Eric just asked, you were stressed about getting a license of some kind, and what happened to that? I'm not sure what that license was. I think that it might have, she might be remembering talking about certification and inspections and of electrical stuff. I think I might have talked about that sometime in the past. So the basically I ended up getting as I should have, I ended up getting my the electrician that did the automation stuff at my house to come in, and so he's the one that, like, where is it? You can just see it. So there's a PowerPoint there. He replaced that PowerPoint was already there, but it was broken. That it was just physically broken. It was half hanging off the wall. So he replaced that PowerPoint, and then you can't. I don't know if you can see it. Oh yeah, you can. Down there, there's another PowerPoint. So he connected that one. There's just cable going up through the wall, and on the other side, there behind that 3-phase outlet is another GPO. There's another PowerPoint. He swapped that, and then he installed another one under the bench, down under there. So, yeah, I did it. Basically, I did what I should have done. I got a real electrician to come in and do the work, and it's all done properly and that sort of thing. So it's fine, like from an insurance point of view and everything. Oh, Tassie, yes, I think you are right. And Chris pointed out that I was misunderstanding. So Tassie Bob said, might have been a reference needing the unit qualifications to do electronics design or something like that. You did a couple of streams about it maybe 6 months ago. Yes, that is a totally different thing. You are right. I think that might be what Erica is talking about. Short answer is no. The very brief recap is that regulations in Australia mean that starting sometime, it's a staggered thing over the space of, I think, 3 years. In order to provide professional engineering services, or in order to call yourself an engineer, you need certain qualifications. There's a list of requirements that you must meet, and it doesn't apply yet. The legislation has been passed, but it's not actually it's not active yet. But the question is, will it be necessary to meet those requirements in order to continue doing the things that I'm doing? And I still don't really have a proper answer to that. what it all comes down to is whether I am providing engineering services. And that is not as obvious as it may seem because of the way engineering is defined. It's not, you can flippantly say, yes, I'm providing engineering services, but it may actually not be the case according to the definition. So, Sharky said, is it only in Victoria? No, it's national. Yeah. And Chris says, WA does not seem to be going that way quite yet. As long as they drag it out by 10, yes, I am sorted. Yeah. To be honest, I've been so busy with other things that I haven't really even thought about it. It's been one of those things that sort of bugged me, and then I forgot about it, and I don't really have a solution. I don't know what the answer is. I don't know if I need it or not. I don't know if I did need it, if changing what I do would mean that it would be okay and I would still be all right. I just don't know. Yeah. And the challenge of, so in order to be formally recognized as an engineer, I would need to do, I think it's a minimum of a 3-year degree, and then I have to work supervised under another engineer for, I think it's another 3 years. Yeah, I can't remember the exact details, but it's something like that. Yeah. Okay, I don't know. Because it was dodgy, I stopped the stream. Paul says, I'm hammered drunk in Benalmeda, Spain. Yeah. I don't know if anyone can actually hear me, so I'm just typing at the moment. Right. Go move the Wi-Fi airport thingy. The thing is that I am seeing full strength. I'm actually only about 4 meters from the access point. It is really, really close. Yeah, super close. Yeah, still I have some audio, but still jumpy. Yeah. I think that what I might do is end the stream, and because if I'm streaming off my ATEM with wired Ethernet, I think it'll be a whole lot better. And this should be the last time that I need to do this super dodgy thing here with my laptop just connecting via Wi-Fi. It is really not a good way to be. I'm back. Maybe I am. Okay. Let's persevere for just a little bit longer. It's not good, is it? So yeah, there was a comment. Who said that? Someone said, this was talking about the whole engineering thing. That's right. Delane said, in the US, most of the time you would be grandfathered in. Yeah, there is a provision for that, but it is still quite onerous. Like, the requirements are still high. What you have to do is something like show, you have to show that you have been working in the field of engineering have to have worked at least 3 years in the last 5, and it must be certified by someone else who is already a registered professional engineer. Something like that anyway. So it's not easy, and I've been working alone for all of this time, so I can't meet that requirement.